Hi, Dr. Myers. Before I start this video that attaches to the assignment artifact, I just wanted to come on and say how much I have appreciated your class, and I really like the work you do and the way you've guided us this course, and it's crazy. A very intense course. I think you're doing a great job, and I appreciate your responses and follow back and how encouraging everybody in this program has been. Both of you instructors this summer one and Dr. Treadway is absolutely amazing. She got me into this program at the last minute. Literally, I think I called her the Friday before classes started, and she had me enrolled and able to open classes on a Tuesday. So thank you to all of you. And now let's get into my educational philosophy. I wrote something out and hit a button, and it went off into outer space somewhere, and I couldn't find it in my history. So I'm going to kind of wing this, and I'm going to be careful in how I do it. I can sometimes come across as a little gung-ho. My philosophy in education, and especially that with children with special needs, it can be a little salty at time. From my own experiences with my children, I had to fight for them. I spent 15 years and was on the verge of hiring lawyers. I had to make reports and complaints to the state. And I'm going to say about my local school, Lead Hill, and it is where I'll be teaching this year. A lot has changed. I think some of the administrations that have come after my children have been there, the board, and just the teachers in general. It feels like an entire different environment. My kids were denied services and denied services. I even had one of the state special ed coordinators came in because I had escalated things when my children kept getting denied. They refused to test my children. This was back in the early 2000s on through 2010 when my oldest daughter finally got an IEP that we fought fast and furious for. I paid thousands of dollars out of pocket for the IQ achievement test through psychologists, and presented it to the board, presented it to the schools, and they were denied services. They were always given some baseline modifications and accommodations. And it really has shaped my view of special education. At that point, I went back. I already had I'd majored in history, pre-law, criminology degree from ASU. I've kind of been all over the place. English. I've earned a lot of hours beyond the requirement for a bachelor's, and I knew in about 2013. My dad, who was the superintendent at Lead Hill when I was going to school in the 80s on through the mid 90s, and I come from a long line of educators. My dad said, Leslie, you have to be the change, not just for your kids. I'm capable of advocating for my kids, but in the back of my mind, it was always, what about the kids whose parents aren't fighting for them? What about the kids whose parents don't even show up for these referral meetings? You know, it can go both ways. You can have teachers that want to put kids into special education, and you have parents that don't want their kid labeled or stereotyped, or the parents have issues with facing the reality of their child's life is different than what they thought it would be. So my perspective, I earn from what I went through with my kids, but then also what I've seen and experienced in my time at the school as an educator and through my friends who are teachers. So I see both sides of it. And the philosophy I've developed is maybe a little out there. I have big goals for education in America in general. I believe that public education is underfunded, and I'm sure most instructors and teachers believe that. But I believe it in big ways, that it's a systemic problem that dates back years in the current environment, especially our current divisiveness in political environment and fights over how money is spent on a national level. It's these kids that suffer, and I think, as with any kid with disabilities, they're impacted and affected in ways beyond what the general education population is. So if you have classrooms that are overfull, underfunded, and programs being cut, different philosophies and how funds should be spent to educate children, that affects the entire general population. But you know who it affects more? It affects our special education programs. And it affects the lives and outcomes these children experience, and it changes their whole lives. It takes away opportunities. So my philosophy of education and what I want to purport in my classroom is a policy I'm not happy with, but I'm going to steal its terminology: no child left behind. I want to be a big proponent of identification, and I want to be a positive factor in working with parents and general education teachers and make a difference in these kids that, especially in a rural school like where I will be teaching, falls through the cracks. My first teaching experience at Lead Hill was actually in the Lead Hill special ed high school, junior high and high school level. And I was working as a long-term sub while I was finishing my degree. And I walked into a classroom, and of course I'm a sub, so, you know, the teacher may have not done everything the same way, or the lesson plans, maybe they taught differently, but I was in that position for about 3 weeks. It was a long-term illness the teacher had, and so they needed somebody that they knew to go into that classroom. And I remember what they left was one question to write on the blackboard. And this would have been mid-90s, probably 96 or 97. And there was one question, and that was the whole day's work for all of these children in that classroom. And it was at that time that my heart really went out, and I thought, these kids are just being thrown to the side. They're not being educated. There are no educational goals for them to pursue. And opportunities were taken away from them. They're not learning, and many of them. I'm not talking, we didn't have a lot of kids at that time in that classroom with severe disabilities. These were kids that were very capable of working and learning, and it didn't happen. The whole 3 weeks I was there, I saw nothing happen. And so I started developing my own lesson plans for them, and I started doing research, and I went to the library, and I got books, and I brought books into the classroom, and I created an environment in there. I decorated the teacher's classroom. I'm not sure how he felt about that when he returned, but it was the most depressing environment ever. So my education philosophy and how I want to put that in play is that I want to see every child that enters my classroom, or if I work as a resource teacher and go into another teacher's classroom, is I want to make sure every child has the opportunity to achieve everything they're capable of and get the support and the resources to do that. I am a big advocate of all kinds of educational organizations. I probably come through that honestly from my parents, and I will be, I think, the 23rd educator in 2 generations in my dad's side of the family, and my mom's side of the family has 7 teachers that are her siblings or first cousins. So I come from a long line of teachers, and I have a lot of good people to draw on to learn how to adapt in the best styles and the best trends. And I just hope that I'm a good teacher and I'm a good advocate for these kids, because there's so many out there that are overlooked and not worked with, and they're not living up to the potential that each and every one of them has. Once again, Dr. Myers, thank you for this class, and I hope to be seeing you in the future.